Now, the most anticipated cabinet reshuffle is done and dusted, and going by the social media reactions, the changes, or perhaps the lack thereof in some instances, has brought more disappointment to Mzansi. Many artists expressed their disappointment that President Cyril Ramaphosa did not axe the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Minister Nathi Mthethwa, whom they feel is not fit for the position. To talk more on this, we are joined by the founder and CEO of the Liliesleaf Trust, Mr. Nic Wolpe, and artist Sibongile Mngoma. A very good evening to both of you, and thank you very much for your time today. Now, we've spoken to you at various intervals about the struggles that you are experiencing, specifically due to COVID-19. Let me start with you, Mr. Wolpe, with trying to save Liliesleaf and trying to get some sort of intervention from the Department of Arts and Culture. Where are you in that suit or that pursuit?
Well, since I was last on Newzroom Afrika to discuss about the financial situation of Liliesleaf, we ran, as you might recall, a crowdfunding campaign, which was partially successful. It enabled us to keep operating, and up until, well, we're going to finish, we'll run out of funds at the end of September. But with regard to the department and their assistance, it's still very unclear what sort of help they will provide. And what makes it very frustrating is several months ago, the minister's spokesperson indicated to one of the radio stations that she wasn't coming on because the minister, following his budget speech, would hold a press conference and address some of the issues which have been raised over the period, which I'm not aware has happened, and I'm not aware whether he's actually raised these specific issues that were discussed. And furthermore, the NEC for Gauteng indicated that they were going to be looking into what I like to call independent institutions, how they could fund them, what measures they could put in place to assist. And likewise, I've heard nothing further since that kind of comment was made by the NEC. So it is extremely disappointing, not just for Liliesleaf, but I think for the entire sector. We are in a kind of suspended animation. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know where we're going to go from here. We don't know what kind of support we're going to get. We are still struggling because, as you indicated, we haven't seen the worst of the covert Delta variant. International travel is still restricted, and we are facing immense hardships. And it is very sad to see the lack of what I would like to say as constructive, positive support and response from government.
Ms. Mngoma, you, along with other artists, occupied the offices of the National Arts Council for over 60 days. What has been the result of that occupation?
The result of the occupation of the NAC offices has been investigations by the Hawks and the investigations by the public protector. So that's an ongoing process, and we just wait. The wheels of justice take a long time to turn, and they're very slow. So that's where we are now with that particular process.
And what exactly are they investigating?
Well, they're investigating maladministration and misappropriation of funds and the general running of the institution that has failed to provide the necessary services for artists. And what we are asking for is an overhaul of that entire institution, because it's not doing what it's there for. And if it's not able to provide the services that it's there for, then it should not exist in its current state. So there's got to be a change of guard and a reassessment of the role that they should be playing. And once the investigations are done, then our recommendations, the last stretch would be get rid of all the people that are causing chaos in that space and replace them with people who know what to do. And in 60 days of occupying the NAC building, we managed to show what can be done with that building that actually benefits artists, and we did it without funding. So how much more if we are supported financially as a sector?
Mr. Wolpe, Minister of Arts and Culture has come out saying that over 700 billion rand has been spent in order to try and support artists as well as organizations during this time. Just your comments on that, as well as allocation of those funds.
You know, it's difficult to talk about the allocation of funds when you are talking about a department that does not service a sector. The silence of the president on the cultural and creative industries during this pandemic has clearly highlighted the fact that he does not regard that department as an existing part of this government. So why keep it? My take on this is that if the president does not recognize the cultural and creative industries, disband the cultural and creative industries department, which is called DSAC, disbanded because it doesn't serve any purpose. That money is being misappropriated, and it's not serving any of us that we can see or benefit from it. So if the president doesn't know what to do with the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, disband it so that we can come up with a new structure that will then function for the sector and the industry as a whole. There's no point in giving a budget on a yearly basis, talking about 700 million has been dispersed to a sector that is not functioning properly. If they don't understand the role of the arts in society and how they are sitting in those positions because of the backing of the arts over history, then they need to get rid of that department and let the artists sort themselves out from other avenues and stop redirecting the funds that even came from foreign entities that were assisting. So all of that has been redirected to DSAC, and DSAC has failed to actually function.
I'd like to take that comment and pose it to you, Mr. Wolpe. Your views on that. First of all, the allocation of the 700 billion rand. The minister says it was disbursed to 65,000 beneficiaries. And also just Ms. Ngoma's comment that perhaps there should be an entire scrapping of the sector and something new needs to be put in place. Your thoughts?
Firstly, I fully agree with the comments made by Sibongile, particularly with regard to, I wouldn't say scrapping the department, but what I would say is, firstly, we need to reimagine and reevaluate what is the role of that department. What is their functionality? What is their raison d'etre? What are they trying to achieve? Because it's quite clear there is no understanding, as Sibongile says, about the sector. They don't understand how the sector operates, the role of the sector, and what its significant contribution that sector can make across the board in terms of from a tourist perspective, from an employment perspective, and ensuring that we create an environment conducive to build upon the needs of the country from the perspective of creating that social cohesion that is sorely lacking in our society today. So yes, but it's not about getting rid of the department per se. It is about ensuring that we have a department that functions, that knows what to do, that people who are fulfilling the mandate of that department have an appreciation, an understanding, and I would use also an emotional connection to the sector. Because a lot of this is about also emotion and passion. It is not simply politics. The department shouldn't be about politics, but it should be about ensuring that the richness of our broad sector is harnessed, is brought together. And we need a department, and we need people in that department who understand it. And on that particular topic, one of the other things that needs to be done is that the department needs to be split. I can't understand or fathom why sport is incorporated into that department. Sport should be a separate standalone, and the Department of Arts and Culture, which should also include the word heritage, should be its own separate standalone department. Now, with regard to the 700 million, I mean, how has it benefited people? What are the benefits? I mean, if it had really, truly benefited people, there wouldn't have been the sit-in at the National Arts Council. There wouldn't be people still complaining about the lack of financial support. How was that money dispersed? Who got that money? Where did that money go to? It's very easy to say 700 million rand was dispersed. But the important thing is, who received that 700 million? How much did they receive? What was the purpose? These are some of what I consider to be the fundamental questions that need to be answered, and the minister needs to explain and give a clear indication as to how this money was dispersed and who received it and for what purpose was the funds received for.
The minister has released a report, and you will know that he started something called #ForTheRecord, which is his way of trying to disseminate information and deal with some of the topical issues of the day. He says the likes of Sipho Hotsticks Mabuse, PJ Powers, Babuvus Mahlasela, Selomake Kancube, those are just some of the names that he says received these funds. But he says as well that there is a complete list of persons and organizations that is going to be distributed. Let me pose this question to you, Sibongile. How do you believe the allocation of funds should actually be administered, where individuals as well as organizations can benefit in a role, in a way that is pivotal to not only them as individuals, but to organizations as well?
You know, again, I will say this. We keep talking about a disbursement of funds. We are not looking at the crux of the problem. You will not disperse funds unless you believe that there's a need for whatever entity it is you're dispersing funds for. Now, we can't be talking about 700 million has been dispersed in grants when we are talking about the arts or the cultural and creative industries. We need to talk about what is the role of the cultural and creative industries. Does the president see the need for it? Hence, I will still disagree, Nicholas, and say, if the president doesn't see the importance of the cultural and creative industries, there's no point in keeping a ministry that is not serving that industry. So when you start talking about how should these funds be dispersed, you are talking about people who don't understand the function. Now, if you had to talk about understanding the function, then you would say, how do we assist the industries to propel the message of the pandemic and how to deal with the pandemic? Because that's what we do. You know, that is our role. We are the heart and soul of society. We speak to issues of the day. Today we are sitting with artists who are scared to talk because they'll be victimized. By now, there should be enough music, art, and anything else talking about the state of the pandemic and the vaccine itself. I remember in the 80s when there was a drought and we had yellow millimil. There was music, songs about it. And there was even a cool drink called Mellow Yellow. I remember that song, Mellow Yellow, Yellow Millimil, because that's what artists do. They provide commentary. Now, when you talk about dispersing funds and you don't understand the importance of that uncensored commentary and just the upliftment that comes with the arts, then you are going to continue giving artists grants instead of empowering artists to assist a process that is failing. By now, if the president understood the role of the arts, he would have given enough money to push his agenda, because the vaccine is his agenda, and we all have to buy into it as citizens. Now, if he understood the role of the arts, he would be using artists and cultural and creative industries to push that agenda. By now...
Ms. Mngoma, we'll have to leave it at that for this evening, but some very pertinent questions. They're also taking us back in time to the cultural and broader significance of the arts during this time. We thank you both for your insight regarding the Ministry of Sports, Arts and Culture.